stream going, guys? Excellent. So welcome everyone to the third of our 3 town hall information sessions about determining the future of the Freestone property. I'm so glad that you're here, whether you're here in the room with us right now, or logging in live right now, or watching this later. I'm so glad that you are taking your time to learn about the Freestone Retreat property and about many of the things and conversations going on right now. So, now we'll have all speakers, since we're going to be passing this mic around, all speakers will have their mask on the whole time. And for folks, if you can make sure you have your mask on properly right now, that would be awesome. So you're holding, I hope, a packet in your hands. And if you don't have one, we'll see. Does anybody need the packet who's in here? All right. So what you're holding is a few different things. I wanted to walk you through the packet and then a little bit of why we're talking about stuff today, and then I'll hand the mic over. Okay, talk slower. Thank you, Grace. So I will walk you through what's in the packet and the process that we're all using as a community to talk about Freestone, and then why we are talking about Freestone now. And then members of the Freestone Committee will share a couple of slideshows, both about the history of the property and some of the research that's been done. And I'll share about some other research that's been done, and then we'll have some questions. So that's how things are going to go. All right, so what you're holding in the packet, so there are a few different things in this packet. What is on the very front page is our overall timeline and process for how we're talking about Freestone right now, overall this spring, summer, and fall as a community. And this is something, the process is something that I'm helping to lead as your interim minister, that this is some good work for us to do in this interim time. And some of the goals. I just want to read through the goals because I feel like they are important to lift up as we are engaging in this. Goals: to achieve a result that is financially sustainable for the congregation and is mission-oriented. To provide opportunities for members of the congregation to be fully informed on the issues and to express their views and feelings. To move towards healing the hurt that has been done in the past. To develop a proposal that is acceptable to as many members of the congregation as possible. And last but certainly not least, to discuss the issues openly, transparently, flexibly, and in the spirit of UUCB's Congregational Covenant and UU values. So what appears below that is the timeline, and we are right now in the information and sharing phase. So the 4th bullet point down, there's been a lot of work done already to get us to this point. And what will be coming in the next few months are small group dialogues to talk about our own experiences and feelings about Freestone, some larger group work of a history wall timeline exercise, and Freestone Dialogue Day, which is TBD for a date. I'm really sorry it is. I had it scheduled and someone pointed out, Michelle, isn't that your daughter's high school graduation? Oh, I said, I'll have to reschedule something, and I can't reschedule the graduation. Then visits to Freestone during the summer, whether folks go and visit on their own or we'll have some organized picnics, just so we can have some time to go and experience the property. Followed by problem solving and decision making in the fall. So it's a nice long process because, again, the importance of making sure everyone can participate and really be fully informed and have their views and feelings heard. On the back of that sheet, you're not holding all of the materials. You're holding only a few of the materials. There are a lot of different appendices, but it was well over 100 pages, and I said I can't print all that out. So the entire packet, you see the large letters at the bottom, may be found at that link. It is also in the week ahead, I believe every week right now. But if you type in that link, you'll be able to get to all of the items listed in the appendices there. The two documents that we'll be talking about today as well are the overall summary report prepared by the Freestone Committee, and then an opinion from a real estate lawyer in Sonoma County that was prepared as well. I need to check my notes and see what else I'm expected to do right now. Oh, how we got to where we are today. So why are we bringing this up? So this would be Tess presenting this and presenting a part later on. She does not have COVID, but she is sick right now and thought it best to be selfish about her germs and keep them at home. A fact I appreciate. So she's not here, so I am attempting to represent what she might say. So one of the things that she was tasked with as our executive director was generating income and maximizing use of UUCB's space. So one of the things that she did is there's a after-school and summer camp program for kids about nature. Trackers is the name of it. That was decided to rent out our Freestone retreat property last summer for having their camp at. And what happened is that some of the neighbors, in part because there was a lot of traffic, because instead of being able to bring the buses like they normally would, it was COVID, so everyone had to be individually dropped off, which ended up being a lot of traffic on the road. The neighbors called it into the county and said, hey, are they zoned for that? And the answer was no. So the camp had to be canceled, and that began a long conversation about zoning and what uses are permitted and what uses are not, and has begun a really deep look at Freestone and what the church can do with the property. That's why the question will be coming to you this fall, later this fall on that. So this is simply information. There's no decisions that we've made anytime soon. So that's why we're standing here today to talk about this. And shall we talk a bit about the history and have some slideshows? All right.
My name is Alan Davis. My name is Alan Davis. I'm a member of the Freestone Committee. And Michael, if you could roll the PowerPoint. Okay, so this is a slide. That slide you just saw for a second was a slide about the building of the dome. The dome was built between about 1972 and about 1980, and it was built entirely by UUCB congregational members. So this is part of the collective memory of the church. And as I stand here, it's Earth Day. And if you stand on the deck of Freestone, you have a magnificent, this is the view. It goes on a very clear day, you can see the ocean. It is an incredibly bucolic and quite exquisite place. You often have birds flying overhead. There are 3 types of owls on the property. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind about this place is that UUCB has had a retreat since 1921. It's been part of the mandate of the church. And essentially, it was the place was built and run by church volunteers until now. And it was largely self-sufficient, funded outside of the budget of the larger congregation. If you could go to the next slide, please. One of the things that is quite unique about this place is it's a geodesic dome. It has 3 bedrooms, a large room in the middle. It can sleep up to 14 people, but we will probably end up renting it as 3 bedrooms, which one of them has a shower. There's 2 showers in the facility. It is really a gorgeous place to spend a weekend, but it's also much more than that. Can you go to the next slide, please? Besides being a place of spiritual retreat, it's relatively close to Berkeley and Kensington. It's about an hour and 15 minutes. It was longer before, but they finished the highway construction this year, so that's shortened the trip considerably. It's equidistant from the Redwoods and Bodega Bay, about a half an hour from each. So you're sitting in a place where You have great places to visit nearby of extraordinary beauty. And it's on a total of 18 acres, and they're quite pretty. Next slide, please. So when you think of Freestone, think of it in the context of every committee practically that the church has visited. It's part of the collective process of the church in terms of going up there from board retreats there to the RE group going up there for weekends to anyone else. So it's been in the church's process for a very long time. Next slide, please. Besides the official committee trips there, it's also had weddings, and many people have enjoyed holidays there, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and the like. Next slide, please. You have to. We lost the slides for a second. But you have to think of Freestone in terms of this. If it was available, it would be rented out by different groups within the church quite effectively most of the time. The challenge is it's been closed for more since 2016. So it's been 5 years it's been closed. And the reason why it's closed is because the way we rented it did not provide enough money for the refurbishing of it. And any building that's over 50 years old is in need of repairs. Can you go to the next slide, please? It really is a unique place that provides a spiritual retreat and a place of contemplation and renewal for the members of the church. And it's not going to be we're not going to find another place like it. And I think that if we go forward and keep it, it will be something that will give everybody who visits it a very memorable, pleasant, and spiritual experience. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, it needs about $145,000 worth of repairs, and we have clear paths of how to fund that repair. It's just a question of whether we have the will as a congregation to continue the process. Next slide, please. We can sell, when the property was bought originally in 1972, there were 4 lots. One lot was sold to fund the initial construction of the dome, and there's 2 other lots that within the purview of the church, within the process, were designated to be sold. And if they were sold, they could generate as much as $300,000, which would pay for the repairs and the future upkeep of the dome. So the financial situation of the dome is not as dire as it might seem. What's really at issue right now is, does the congregation want to keep it? And also the zoning issues. As Michelle mentioned, there are some issues. There's a letter in your package that's one opinion. There are other views about that will be shared over the next period that present a much different view for it, much more positive. I would say at this point, before I hand the mic over to David Wemmer, the head of the committee, I invite all of you to come visit it. There will be multiple trips this summer officially organized, and there will be opportunities to visit it on your own. But if you visit it, it will certainly change your perspective on it in a much more positive way.
Thank you, Alan. So I'm David Wemmer. I'm the kind of newish committee chair, Freestone committee chair, and my presentation will provide a summary of what is in the report, the Freestone report. I did a lot of research into looking at numbers. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I was sounding good to myself, but not to you. I'll wait for Michael. You're gonna get my deck up and yeah. There we go. So I wanted to jump in. The next slide. These are some FAQs, frequently asked questions. I'll let you kind of go through them, but and Alan has already addressed some of them, but basically the ones I'd want to focus in on would be, can we afford Freestone? And I think I want to reiterate that we can. We do have some revenue models. We've developed some different ways on how to use it and rent it, and some of those models would actually produce a profit. Some would not. But the bottom line is I think it is financially sustainable. If our revenues didn't meet our operating costs, that shortfall would be a very small number, like $10,000 annually. Could be a potential shortfall. Go ahead, next slide. So some of the the recent zoning issues we've kind of talked about. We have the opinion letter from an attorney who's local up there. We've reviewed it. We're having some congregant attorneys review it, and we still have some more questions and clarifications we're looking for from the attorney, because we think they're being overly conservative and also making presumptions that we don't necessarily agree with in their letter. So we're still engaged there, and we also are going to be looking into some other additional rights that we have as a religious organization. And the attorney we have engaged is not an expert in those matters, so I think we'll be looking to investigate some of those avenues to give us some other opinions. Next. So I put together what our annual operating costs would be, and I'll follow this with what some of our potential revenue models would be. But generally, it's about $20,000, and then the items in green are kind of the actual expected money you would spend during the year for property taxes or insurance, or you need a plumber to fix something, those kind of everyday things that most of us who are homeowners actually spend. And then the items in blue would be collecting monies to put into a reserve fund to fund bigger items of work in the future, like when we need a new roof, or when we need to do repairs or replacement of our deck, or paint the dome inside or out, those sorts of things. And in the past, we haven't had enough revenue to generate a reserve fund, but moving forward, I think it's important to make sure that we're doing that. So it's kind of 20,000 total, about 10,000 for actual expenses, and 10,000 a year to set aside into a reserve fund. Next slide. We have a question. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Then I looked at cost estimates for the required work we need to bring the property back to a state of good repair. The issues that we have now for refurbishment is we have some significant dry rot and termite damage. That's the first line item, about 60,000. We need some structural retrofitting on the dome. We want to replace the windows and the sliding glass door in the dome itself. We got some the deck. We want some deck repairs and some railing retrofitting. Some minor roof repairs, some flashing that needs to be taken care of. We got a county permit, and we probably need to spend some money on like an architect to put together a construction package to go out to bid with contractors. So these numbers that I have here came from my engagement and talking with local contractor. You know, came out, met me on site. We walked through, and then he put together, you know, a budget construction estimate. Not a bid, because we're not prepared to go do the work today. And this is a initial phase 1 amount of work to get us back to be able to use the property again. It's about $130,000. It's kind of what a phase 1 would be. Then go to the next slide. Oh, okay. So I'm missing maybe I'm missing a slide there. There's an additional phase 2 amount of work of like $30,000, and that's to replace some more of the doors and windows in the bedrooms and bathrooms, and finishing off the there's a shower that is unfinished, so we wanted to get that back in operation with some tile and a fixture. So we had 130, and about another 30 would get us back to a state of good repair for the dome. The other item that, you know, we think would be a good idea is to go ahead and pave the couple of steep portions of the page 5 in your handout is where we're at. We think it'd be a good idea to pave. There's 2 sections of the road that goes in that are steep, and have been an issue with people, you know, trying to, you know, negotiate that when you're going up the steep hill. People tend to spin out or, you know, have a hard time, and we think it might be a good idea at this time to kind of bite the bullet. Let's pave those 2 sections of road. And just make it an easier, safer access. And that could be about $100,000 to do that work. So we looked at some potential revenue models. So we're showing 5 here. The first being just like the continuing use or rental that we've had in the past. You know, it's a very affordable type of fee structure. If you've ever used it in the past, and I think everybody would agree that's extremely affordable. And so we have the number on the left is like gross revenue, and then number on the right is kind of net revenue after some operating expenses. So we have rental, looking at rental per just our historic use. Another would be, the second would be renting it on like a fee basis that would be based on like a discounted local vacation rental rate, like an Airbnb. So I think we looked at comparables on Airbnb, and then we said, well, what if we rented it to ourselves at like 40% of what Airbnb would be? Another model would be to just do it rent it on a per room basis. So maybe it's $100 a night for a room, and you could rent a room, and then another family, if say it was like families were using it as opposed to a church group, one family could rent this room, another family that room, and that room. So you might, kind of a hostel kind of setup where you might have 3 different families using it, or uncoordinated, or you could have it coordinated where 3 families got together and say, let's rent it for this weekend, and do it that way. Then we have a blended, on item 4, we've kept a blended way of, well, maybe we can rent to congregants, and we can also rent via Airbnb at a higher rate. So we get more revenue if we did that and kind of split that between us, a 50-50 model. And on that one, you can see $26,000 net. And if you remember on the previous slide, we had a $20,000 operating budget. So that would be, providing $6,000 profit above operating. And then the last one is, if we just decided, hey, let's just be a landlord. Let's just rent this out to a family, and kind of like we do with the cottage, and market rate of like $3,500 a month for rent, and we could bring home. It's about 38,000 net, 20,000 operating costs. We'd have a profit of 18,000. So these are just some ideas that the committee brainstormed, and of course, anybody else has some other ideas, we'd welcome them. We can take a look at them. Next. Okay, funding sources. Where we're going to come up with 60,000, maybe another 100,000 for the road, etc. Well, Alan already mentioned we've got the two lots. The two lots are undeveloped. They're just raw land. We have a local realtor, took a look at it, give us her opinion, and those two lots she thought would be about $300,000 sold as is, undeveloped. The next option would be, well, if we wanted to develop those lots, which means put a well, drill a well to have proven water, and then you can do what they call a soil percolation test to show that your soil is adequate for to support a septic system in a leach field. So if you have those two things done, then it's considered developed, and you'll get quite a bit more money. Maybe it'd be $500,000 for the two lots instead of $300,000. But then you do have the risk of, well, what if you drill a well and it's dry? So it's a risk-reward thing. Next slide. Well, I'll jump ahead because I know what's coming. Another approach would be do a capital campaign for Freestone, similar to like we do for the sanctuary, the main campus here. We could get a bank loan, and then we'd have a mortgage. And you have to put that into the operating costs. No problem. We could maybe get a loan from our own endowment fund, maybe at a more favorable rate than a bank loan. Next. Go back. Wait. There could be some maybe some angel donors at the church, people that really have enjoyed Freestone in the past and see its potential to continue to serve the congregation in the future. Maybe we can get some angel donors to step up and make some donations. Yeah. And then last is potentially a conservation easement. We have some valuable habitat on the property, and we've reached out to some conservancies that buy conservation easements to protect habitat in endangered and threatened type species, and so we're looking into that. It's hard to find a conservancy that kind of deals in this small of properties. There's a high competition for conservation easement monies, but we are talking to 3 or 4 agencies, and seeing what the possibilities are. Next. Michael. And I'll pass this over to Michelle. All right, okay. So if we the sale of the properties, this is an option of if the congregation decides, no, we vote not to move forward with Freestone. The realtor also had mentioned that can you put the slide back up? The realtor had also mentioned that the parcel 4, where the dome is on, that's 11, almost 12 acres, that is worth about $1.2 million in its current as-is condition. She would recommend, if you decide to sell, don't spend the money to fix up the dome. Just sell it as is, because there'll be some tech money that's going to come in, and they'll want to spend their money to do it the way they want. So we could, if we sold everything, we potentially would have $1.5 million would come in, and then what to do with that money. So we could purchase a lesser priced retreat property in a different location, and then put the excess money back into the church general fund. We could take some part of that money, put it into an endowment to maybe fund retreats, or partially, some retreats for our groups or families. Maybe that's a way to continue with the ministry of a retreat, but not have to, own and maintain a property. Or we could just put the whole $1.5 million into our general fund and use it for what we want around the property here. And the market up there is been booming, and I think as a asset investment, Freestone has been really good for us. But in the last couple of years with the pandemic and people wanting to work from home and continue to work from home, and having the proximity of Sonoma County to like San Francisco, where people can still come in for their cultural events and things in the city, the realtor says things are just have just boomed up there in the last couple of years. But it's always been increasing in value. So as an investment, that's something to consider also. It's always going to be an increasing asset value. And I think with that's the last one, isn't it? I think should be. Yeah. And now we're going to show you a video. Okay. Okay.
Hi, I'm Nori Clark, and I've been a long time member of the Freestone Committee and enjoyed its the space marvelously. So I'm going to give you a vision. Now, see, I don't have to figure out whether this is practical or what. Okay. So I just want to give a vision. I don't have to have the practical aspects. These gentlemen have done that for you. But what it means to me and what it does for me. Some of this is repetitious, but I'll just start anyway. The Freestone geodesic dome was conceived and constructed 45 years ago, or somewhere around there, when the zeitgeist of the nation was excited about returning to nature and creating their own environments. The geodesic dome kit, I believe, came from the Whole Earth catalog. Young people don't know what that is, but it was pretty cool. What? Anyway, and that was a treasure trove of products for the generation of do-it-yourselfers. When we bought our hilltop, it was a denuded pasture in the recesses of Sonoma County. Our beloved retreat in Inverness was being encircled by the growing township, and as a result, no longer suitable for our church retreat. One of the elders of our church exploring Sonoma County discovered the acreage at our current location for sale. With the forthcoming end of our Inverness retreat, he offered to loan the church the money to purchase the remote spot. And actually, we really only need the 11 acres that is our lot, because that's quite a bit. And over the years of construction of the dome, our church went through some economic struggles, like we've had recently too, even so far as to having to lay off the choir director. Heavens. But Freestone continued to develop and grow outside of the church budget. Built with the generosity and sweat equity of church members, the site turned into the nurturing spiritual retreat that we've enjoyed for so many years. The dome was raised, bedrooms added, a kitchen and bathrooms built, water was found, a well dug, and woods of sequoia and madrone planted. And our sacred spot evolved into the memorable place for reflection and deepening connection among ourselves and with nature. I will skip the part about how in recent years various things happen. You've heard about that. But the one thing that made a big difference to me was finally the construction of 101 that gets you there is finished. And we're back to only a little over an hour to get there at the most, whereas it could be any amount of time back for many years. So I imagine bringing back many of the events which were enjoyed at the Dome over the years. Outdoor Sunday services, weekend retreats for many of the smaller groups that are such a vibrant part of our community, board retreats, the resumption of annual Ripe for Your Life retreats, that's one of my favorites, men's group, weddings. I can't even name all the things that have gone on up there. And new ones, a final meeting of a chalice group, memorial weekends, a nature weekend led by a naturalist. We have a meditation grove of redwoods at the bottom of the circle. It needs a bench so people can sit there and meditate. And I would like to see trails built from that area, covering much of the acreage of varied a varied landscape that we have. The youth group camping out and having their coming of age experience. And then there is its greater offering, a place for reflection and renewal, a place to unwind and recharge. The possibilities that this magnificent property offers are only limited by our imagination. Now the question of money has again come to the fore. As you've heard, to refurbish the dome would be expensive, and the value of 11 acres of Sonoma has become considerable. I want to remind people that we don't even need the dome itself on the property to enjoy the natural beauty and worth of our piece of paradise. It might be replaced by a less expensive alternative. The value of this large piece of land in Sonoma, it will only continue to increase in value. I mean, I can't even imagine 11 acres in Sonoma right now. We'll never be able to replace it. As a gift lovingly given by members of our community, I hope we will use any resources it provides us to create something comparable, of comparable value, that will nurture our loving community and remind us of the interconnectedness of our existence with all of nature. And also to recognize that anything of value, such as Freestone, requires a true commitment by all of us to nurture and care for it and even revitalize it, or it'll just be money easily spent and gone.
To represent her at the moment. My hair is not her awesome blue, purple colors that she's got, but I'll try my best. So the perspective that I'm presenting on is a different side of the perspective, and there are different opinions about it because it is code interpretation. It is the what might happen sort of side of the issue. So what I'm going to walk you through is a little bit of the second half of the packet, which is the report from Sonoma County Real Estate Attorney Tina Wallace. But before I get into that, I wanted to raise a couple of other points. One of which didn't make it into any of the paperwork, but another thing that happened this past fall is that we lost the insurance, the church mutual insurance for the Freestone property. That after they gave us a number of things that we need to do to get it into greater fire safety, all of those things were done, and then they said, we're dropping you anyway. So it is now our church insurance company does not cover Freestone. We had to go acquire outside separate private insurance to cover the property. And I'm disappointed that happened. In fact, I reached out to the UUA to say, is this something that other churches in fire areas are facing, to see if there were anything collective that can be done. I haven't heard back, but I probably won't hear back. But so that's an additional piece. We are insured there, but it is now more expensive insurance. So the other piece of this, and came with the, okay, how did we get to today, is really about the fabulous legal stuff, the permitting. The permitting and what is permitted or prohibited in the space, and what the interpretation about what we are zoned as allows us to do, which is a matter of interpretation, and also the risk involved. Because with many of these, the risk is, will, just like with trackers, will the neighbors call in something? And which could result in citations against the church. We did receive one for trackers for that being an unauthorized use. The property is currently zoned single-family AR, agricultural residential. That is the way it has always been zoned. And so that one thing means and it's in Tina Wallace's report. She talks through, that would be on paragraph number. I numbered each of the paragraphs to help follow. And yes. How about this? Okay, I just stepped a few more feet away in order to do that. So paragraphs 10 and 11 talk about the zoning a bit. And what I like in this report is that she also lists the Sonoma County Code numbers to be able to look up and see what the code says itself. It's a lot of legalese, yes, but this is one of the things that we've tried to do with many of these materials is present all of the pieces to you so that we can take a look and delve into the depth that you wish. All right, so we are currently zoned single-family agricultural residential. And as some of the questions, it's many of the things in the report, in the report that Dave Wemmer presented, are some different uses of the land. And some of those fall under different uses and different permitting required by Sonoma County. And those include church use during the day, church use for overnights, vacation rentals, and campgrounds. And many of these Tina talks about and at least and points out the different parts of the code. And then a big question is, and this is the one that came up when we realized, oh, we're single family. What would we need to do to be able to use it like we think we've been using it? And that's called a conditional use permit to use as a community meeting facility. And that's a big deal to try to get. So a lot of the questions come down to, okay, what can we do under our current permitting and the current zoning? What could we do with this other, but is it feasible? Is it feasible to even get it through? And then, of course, there's the cost associated with it. So again, presenting these things because these are the things for UUCB to consider. So let me find the page that is on. Paragraph 27, 28, and 29 talks about the community use, community meeting facility with the conditional use permit. 27, using the house as a community meeting facility requires a conditional use permit in the AR zoning district. Changing what a structure is used for also changes the occupancy classification, which often triggers significant physical improvements, such as fire sprinklers that Tess believes won't be much of a problem, accessibility requirements, which is a great big unknown as to what that might require. Paragraph 28. And this is some of the numbers that you'll see throughout the report. Community meeting facility could accommodate more than 12 adults. There's some on the numbers of what did the different permitting, how many adults, how many children could be there. And there's also in the vacation rental permit, there's some questions about how many human beings can be there. Yeah, so the permitting. I'm not going to go through everything in this document. I've had to read it 3 or 4 times in order to get my head around it, and there are some other interpretations that are also being prepared. But just to go back to the first page. This is when I need 3 or 4 hands. Don't y'all wish for that sometimes? 3 or 4 hands, extra fingers? Yes. So the conditional use permit, if we were to pursue that, would require studies and environmental reports, which could be $150,000 or more. Legal fees and filing fees with the county, which could be $200,000 or more. The ADA upgrades. And some of these numbers, especially the legal fees, were increased somewhat because we apply for it. If it is opposed by any neighbors, which it is likely to be, given that there are neighbors calling in complaints about use, it would take even more time. So we would be looking at 18 to 24 months of time for a permit that, an 18 to 24 month time, after which a permit may or may not be issued, and with those fees involved. So that's the conditional use permit, 1. So then the questions are, if that were pursued, those are the numbers associated with it. The question is, if we didn't do that, what would be permitted then for the church use during the day, the church use for overnights, vacation rentals, and campgrounds? And Tina goes through some of these to note the code and what permits may be required. There are permits for vacation rentals along with Sonoma County fees for vacation rentals. And how many people can use it with what frequency as a church? There probably will not be a defined, definite answer to that question. That's one of the challenges and the ambiguity that we are holding. So simply presenting the information for us to decide, because whatever we do, there is a risk, whether it's valid or not, of neighbors calling it into the county, with the risk, whether valid or not, of being cited by the county. So I hope I'm representing the ambiguity here, and because I wish I could say it is A and B and they equal C, because that would make things easier, but it is a more complex reality. All right. Now that I have muddled things completely, why don't we have some Q&A time? Yeah, could you use the other mic? I don't know. Here, in the stand.
Test, 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 test. There you go. And just in regards to the conditional use permit, we are not even considering, at least the committee is not even considering a conditional use permit because there's nothing that it would provide to us that that we feel we already have rights to do. So it's scary when you read the letter and you go, oh, geez, but that's not even on the table.
Okay, let's do some questions because the clarifications may come up. I see Beth and Jean and okay, yes.
Is that property surrounded by single-family homes?
The question is our property surrounded by single-family homes? It's surrounded, yes. It is, all the properties around us are zoned AR10. That's agricultural, residential, 10-acre minimum. So they're all, you know, each of those have a single-family home on it, 10 acres. You know, country living. Your basic, what you envision as country living. You know, getaway homes, a lot of permanent residents. People got horses, and it's kind of the picture you saw there is it's what it's like, but it's cut up into 10 acres, and you see old homes, new homes. It's country living.
My question has to do with the repairs and their costs. For the outward leaning stem wall and the break in the wall with water damage and dry rot. Dry rot is easy. Replace the wooden beam. The stem wall is the problem. For all domes, the weight of the dome pushes its support outward. This stem wall is leaning out in spots, sometimes supported with sticks. It has broken, and there is water damage in the inside the dome. The break is covered with tin. Okay, stem wall. By design, the wall has 3 doorways and 8 joints in it. The wall is in 3 independent arcs, not strong enough over time to resist being pushed outward. And there are windows at the very bottom of the dome, and they are involved in pushing the stem wall outward. That's too much stress for windows. The glass cracks and breaks. I believe the stem wall was badly designed. I don't think cosmetic changes will fix the problems. I think the committee understands the need for strengthening the stem wall if that can be done. And I don't know how expensive it will be.
So the question was about besides repairing the dry rot issues, it's also the structural issues. And if you remember, I had a line item in the repair budget for structural retrofitting, and that is specifically to address the issues you talk about with the stem wall. What we have, we have the floor of the dome, and then we have the dome, and the dome comes down and sits on a stem wall. It's about 3 feet high. This, gives you some more headroom and space when you're closer to the dome, so it's not coming down. So, and that's what most dome homes, they put a stem wall to get that extra space. And so over time, that little stem wall has leaned out, and I think it's compromised some of the flashing, and that's caused, where the water's gotten in, and we've got the dry rot. The big ticket item is the dry rot, about $63,000. We hired a structural engineer 5-6 years ago and an architect. The structural engineer came up with a designed retrofitting scheme to handle this specific issue. And it's simple and it's very inexpensive. And it has to do with at the stem wall comes up and it's a geodesic dome, so you have like segments. So at the corner of the stem wall, they put a structural strap around the top to carry the ring load around to handle the structural forces coming down from the dome. And the straps, a strap is, it's like a metal strap. I mean, it's $25, and you put in high strength lag screws, and that carries the lateral thrust of the dome. And then at the sliding glass doors, which would be an interruption of that ring load, he has designed a small steel frame over the doorway opening to carry that load around. And then when you get to where the kitchen is, and the annex, what we call the annex portion of the house is where the 3 bedrooms are, he carries a strap around the top. So we just, retrofit and put in this strapping. So it's very effective, very inexpensive. And actually, like the strapping would just be put in when they're replacing and repairing the dry rot. So we have the plans stamped by the structural engineer. I am a civil engineer with a structural background. That was my career. So I understand this stuff, and it's, I reviewed his calcs, I looked at it. It's a simple, elegant fix.
And I believe that line item was 12,000, and it was the first phase 1 or phase 2.
The 12,000 I put in there was just for like the steel frame. The strapping was like insignificant, so I just assumed it's part of the dry rot. The contractor that does, well, it's going to be one contractor, we would have do everything. We wouldn't piecemeal it out.
And as I understand it, that is, Grace, you described it so specifically, but the stories I've heard about sagging walls, that's exactly what we're talking about now? Okay.
So if you go up there and you'll see the stem wall it's out of plumb about an inch in the 3-foot height. You visually you can see it. So when they go in and do the dry rot, they'll have to support the dome when they're replacing studs and top plates and some of the shear walls of plywood. They would straighten up the stem wall, put in the strap, repair all the dry rot, and release the dome back onto the retrofitted wall.
Beth Jurdy, then Jean Gleason.
Thank you. So could you please tell us at this moment, how is the driveway? Is it drivable? What's the situation, please?
Yes, it's in really good shape. The Trackers Earth gave us like $10,000 to kind of fix the potholing and stuff that occurred with all their traffic. So we had a local paving contractor come in and put down some aggregate base, roller compact it, and it's in really good shape right now. There was some little washing out from the December deluge, but it's minor. It's in good shape. I haven't been back up to see what the April deluge, but December was a deluge. I think that was April showers, and I think there's May flowers up there now.
Oh, just one thing, because of the dryness, the drought, and then we had that rain, it's grown grass and stuff, and that sort of stabilized it as well, and we didn't have the terrible pouring down of the water onto the to the thing making the things.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I can't. I will move a little further away. Yeah. Okay. All right. I hope you can understand me. Okay. Thank you. I've got two questions. Please forgive me if it's repeating what's been said. I was having a great deal of trouble reading what was up on the screen, and my hearing is getting worse. First of all, now it's where I used to live. I was surprised to see that you wanted to put in a garbage disposal with a septic system. And so that's allowed in California, or is there sewer out there?
Allowed, we wouldn't put one in. Hi. Okay. Yeah, the question was, I think it's a possible future improvements is like, well, maybe put in a garbage disposal and maybe a dishwasher, some other things. But the question is, well, can you have a garbage disposal if you're on a septic system? And that's a good question. I don't know. And if you can't have that, then we wouldn't do it.
My other.
Yeah, so we have a septic tank, and then it feeds a septic field. We have a septic field. Yeah. It's right below the tank, and kind of right below the deck on the kind of left side. If you.
Also, I unfortunately didn't hear what you said about the water supply. We're in the midst of a continuing drought, and the last I heard, there was only one source of water for Freestone. It was being shared with one of the neighbors, but that is there water so that it makes the lots that you've talked about selling, so that there's water in those for those lots?
No, our dome, the parcel 4 where our dome is built, we have an excellent well. It's only used by us, and we actually cannot, by county regulation, share it with anybody else's. I think what you're referring to is we had an easement on lot 3 for water, and that was lot 3 was sold a long time ago, and we had an easement on that property for water. We gave that up ultimately. So we have excellent water. You need 1 gallon per minute production minimum to have a small home built. We're over we're like at 2.5 to 3 gallons per minute. So we have excellent water, and it's nice, clear water. And I think an older well from way back, it was maybe a little bit more sulfury, but this is clean water. We have a 5,000 gallon water tank, so we pump the water up from our well into the tank, and then that gravity feeds it right down to serve our dome.
But is that water being recharged? How's it being recharged?
Well, we've had many drought years, and we've never had an issue. Well, the question was, what about in drought years? Does a well not produce water? Has it ever gone dry? And no. Our well is located below the dome, down by the creek. We have seasonal creeks that run on the property, and our well is down there, and it's 150 feet deep, even below that. So we're down quite deep, and it's never been an issue.
So I get to be the voice of ambiguity, because how much can we predict about water availability in the state of California over the next however many years? So in one sense, it's an impossible question, unfortunately. I'm sorry I'm the despair monster today. I'm not trying to be. At least I'll be the ambiguity monster. So there is water flow now, but just as much as for so many other parts of the state, it's almost impossible to predict. So we've got Anita's been waiting, and then Jim, and then we'll see. Oh, and then Bob. Okay, so Anita, Jim, Bob.
So my question's actually simple. When were these estimated costs made, and have they taken into account recent inflation?
So the question was the numbers that are in the report, the cost estimates and such. Those are recent. I got those about a month ago from, reached out to a few local contractors. One agreed to, give us work up a budget estimate with line items. Those are like per current market conditions. Of course, seems like the market always keeps going up. So, but those are current dollars.
Am I on? Okay. Freestone is indeed a lovely place. I went there once for a choir retreat. I've been there for picnics, and it would be wonderful if the church could use it. It would be wonderful that if the church could use it as it has traditionally been used. I'm having trouble paying too much attention to all the questions about practical considerations about investments and repairs and so forth, because as far as I read this document from the lawyers from Sonoma County, all of that may be impossible. In paragraph 27 and 28, it says, using the house as a community meeting facility requires a conditional use permit in the AR zoning district. And as Michelle pointed out in other paragraphs, that is a very expensive proposition. Now, moving on to in the same long paragraph, of the one on 28, it said the church in a meeting with the committee, the church regularly uses a facility for groups with more than 12 adults. A community meeting facility could accommodate more than 12 adults. Now this is, as I read it, you still need to get this ADR before you could have it be a community meeting facility. But overnight lodging would still be illegal. So you'd have people who could go up there once all the extra expense, which as far as I read this, should be part of the budget. The $150,000 to $500,000 of getting this permit. Once you have that, you could have a situation where the people could go up, meet during the day, but then nobody could stay there. Staying there overnight requires that it be used as a vacation home or a single-family dwelling, and the community meeting facility and the traditional uses that it's been used for many years do not fall into either of those categories. So I'm confused as to why we're talking about repairs and insurance and any of these things, these practical considerations when we have a legal situation that needs to be resolved.
Okay, so the question was all about the attorney letter and about conditional use permits and all these hurdles that we may have to jump through. Like I said, we are not looking to get a conditional use permit. The uses that would be afforded to us in a community meeting facility land use, we don't need. We are wanting to continue to use the dome as a single-family residence, and as a single-family residence, we are allowed to have the occasional wedding, picnic, memorial, just like anybody's house. and that, the county has put that in writing. Where it gets gray is if we were, had numerous and larger events there, which would maybe bring it to the attention of neighbors, and neighbors, are getting tired of, if we had a large picnic every month, then 4 weddings a month, and that then you're stepping over the line from what kind of a normal use would be for single-family residents.
Then it should no longer be called a retreat facility because, as I understand, from what you're saying, we could have these single-family events, weddings and so forth, but we could not have, for example, the choir go up there and have a retreat because that would be a community meeting.
No, I think you could. I think you could.
Why?
That
seems like wishful thinking to me.
I don't think so. I think because you can have a single family use it and invite guests. So a single family could be, you could, as part of the choir, rent it and then have guests under a single family use. Yeah, I'm going to let Bob speak to that also. And plus, these are some of the finer points that, like I said, we are still engaged with the attorney. And Bob's a real estate attorney, and my wife is an attorney, and she read through and gave an opinion. So there's some evolving opinions that are yet to be decided on and shared.
Jim, I'm an attorney that handled real estate problems, including the trial of the use. Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. Okay. I'm an attorney that has handled land use problems, including the trial of an easement across property. And my observation would be, let's not read the letter you have in your hands too finely. There are a lot of areas covered by that letter that are open to very wide interpretations, and I extend that to the observation that you just made concerning calling it a retreat. If it is restricted to a single family use type of project, a family could very well have a party when they would have people there. It could be very much more than 12. That would be within the single family use concept. I think the concept also gets expanded on something that David referred to that's still being looked at. There are special considerations where property is a part of a, I'm going to say, spiritual organization. And there are case laws that cover how far that extends. That was not addressed in the attorney's letter, but it is something the committee is continuing to look into and will probably discuss with our council going forward. So the letter you have is our first assessment. We think that there are areas of the letter that are very much open to interpretation, and those interpretations need to be fine-tuned.
Because of the pressure to rent that place out to make money, I have concerns about the effects it will have on the neighbors. That if we have to rent it out to so many parties, so many weddings and things, just to keep the property profitable, we're going to piss the neighbors off because they're single family and we're not.
I don't know what that is. Oh, the camp. Yeah, the camp that we had last summer. Trackers Earth had. There was like 62 cars coming in. before our historic use, up until that youth camp last year, we've never had a complaint from a neighbor. Our use has never been that great. I mean, we have like an annual picnic. I only know of like 1 or 2 weddings that were up there. So it really is, we don't use it to that extent that I think we're going to raise any. No, well, let me talk about the pressure to rent it. We're not considering, and we can't rent it out for, to outside parties for weddings and that sort of thing. Everything, you know, if we're going to use it in the capacity of weddings and memorials and picnics, that's for our use. If we try to rent it out for weddings to third parties, that does cross the line, and maybe you need the community meeting facility. We're not thinking of that. But the worst case scenario here is, and this is important to consider, we could use this and not even charge rent. 0. And that would cost us $20,000 a year. That's our operating. $20,000 a year out of $1 million budget. And then we have no issues about, people, of who can afford to use it, who can't afford. We just open it up and say, reserve and use it. $20,000 out of $1 million.
I want to see if we have anything burning that needs to be said or asked. It is after 2, and I want to respect your time. So I think, Alan, did you have something short?
I'll just add that
And I'll bring it to Karen.
two comments. One, I'm a member of the Freestone Committee. One, I just wanted to add 2 things. I'm a member of the Freestone Committee. One is that the Tina Wallace letter, just to be perfectly clear, is being reviewed by multiple lawyers. We've had another legal opinion written about it. There's considerable questions about the pessimistic nature of the letter, and we think that it's open to interpretation that needs to be reviewed by others. The other thing is, speaking to the second question that was just raised about rentals, we can rent the place to families as single room rentals, and we could rent the whole dome to Airbnb people at a much higher price. Whatever choice we make, the amount of traffic we're speaking of will be relatively small, considerably less than anything like the Tracker's Earth that saw 62 cars in a day. So we don't think, I just want to amplify on that, that's going to be an issue. What's going to be at issue is what is the ambiguous nature of our zoning situation, and I think we will address that in future communications. And I just want to emphasize, we welcome everyone coming up and seeing it to understand why we have this passion for this place.
Yeah, while we think about all of this, I'm concerned about the increased wildfire danger, and I think I see that there's only one road in and out. So I'm concerned about if there's a group of people in there and there's a fire. So another time I'd like that addressed. What are the exit possibilities if there's a fire on the road?
I'm not going to address that in detail, but I can tell you that there's been extensive dialogue with the neighbors about planning other routes. We've had conversations with at least 2 neighbors, one of which has already given us permission to provide a route through their property.
All right, anything else? I don't like to use burning, but anything else compelling to be asked before we have our final video and close? Or close and have our final video. We'll do it in that order. One more compelling? Okay.
I just invite everybody to look into the appendices where there's a lot more detail when you want to review and look at what the costs that I received from the contractors and the revenue models. I have spreadsheets on how I came up with the gross and net revenues, the assumptions and such. So if you are questioning all of that, it's all there in the appendices. Have fun, and I would love to answer questions. And as we move forward.
So thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to the members of the Freestone Committee who have worked hard to get the content together and been working hard for so long on bringing this information to you. Please do take a look at the folder and all of the pieces in there. It's a lot of showing the work, and I believe every document referenced in other documents is in there. So you can look back and forth and see what everything's talking about. So I think we have a video that Michael DeWitt that you'd prepared. Yes, Dave has done phenomenal, incredible work for the committee and has been working very hard on getting all this together.
And
Thanks,
Alan. Alan has
and
been
Alan
right
Davis
there
as well.
with me, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. I'll repeat it after you say it. Okay. All right. So we will play the video silently now. There's a video with the music, a link on the Freestone page on the church website. Thank you all so much for coming, and stick around if you can for the video, but you can also catch it on the website. Thanks. How long is the video? 3 minutes? Okay. Okay, request to only have the video with sound because the sound is fabulous. So it's a 3-minute video. Check it out on the church website. Thank you all so much for coming. Really appreciate it.
Cherry blooms, peak profusion everywhere, like a mist of gossamer. Cherry blossoms fill the air, covering Hiroshima's plain. Come and see, spring is here. Cherry blooms, when we die as we surely must, why not under yonder tree? And when we return to dust, falling flowers our wreaths will be. Come and see, come and see. Hiroshima tree. We'll build a land where we bind up all broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come in the land with sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, and justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build the land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll be the land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Come build a land where the mantles of praises resound from spirits once faint and once weak, where the yokes of righteousness stand her people. Oh, come build the land, my people we seek. Come build a land where sisters and